Good evening everyone and welcome along to live coverage of round 7 of the Inside Line Racing League season here on Xbox One. It's the Canadian Grand Prix and once again joining me in the commentary box it's James Baker. James, it's promising to be another cracking Grand Prix in what is turning out to be a thrilling season. Monaco last week, this time we head to Canada. Can Surprise stretch his lead or can OMG it's Joe claw himself back into the title hunt?
There's a lot pressure mounted on this Grand Prix in particular, like you say, a retirement potentially for Surprise, and a win for Joe means that the championship goes to just 1 point, and that's an incredible achievement to be fair from Joe, although if it is a retirement then he's slightly lucky in that sense, but hopefully it's going to be as close as it was last season. Martin and Danny took us all the way to the checkered flag in that one, and looking at qualifying times at the moment, Andy, it looks like we might stay the same. Simon and Surprise on the exact same lap time in qualifying, something we've never seen before on ILR Xbox.
Yep, well, they are very closely matched, Simon and Surprise, but Simon has slightly quite, I presume he set the lap time first. I'm not sure if the game picks up on that, but it is, of course, in real life. Well, that's good. In real life, it is the case that if you set your time first, and you do the same time as someone else, you get to keep the top spot. So Simon, he's done the first time and he's ahead of Surprise at the moment, and it looks like the majority of cars, for once, I mean okay we've seen it in Monaco as well, but more often now we're starting to see more lap times in qualifying and everyone feels they can do the one-stop strategy using the Hypersoft compound, James.
It's a very risky strategy. I've spoken to a few guys heading into the race and there's a lot of differing opinions on what they think is the best tyre strategy for this race. Now, two-stop is possible, believe it or not. You can have a lot of pace on the two-stop. I personally probably wouldn't go for that one, but you can if you want. Personally, I'd probably go for that alternate strategy that a lot of people favour. You can do the one-stop from hypers to super softs, but it is very, very touch and go, I've heard. I'm not too sure how well it plays out. So supers, ultras could be a good way to go. You're going to have a lot of life in those tyres in the due course of a Grand Prix. So actually that's probably the better strategy to be on for this one. But that's not to say most people won't go and set their time on hypersoft time.
So do you think there's a possibility that those on hypers might even do a two-stop then, not only a one-stop? So wow, it could be really interesting to see what pans out. Will we see two stops? Will we see one stop from those Hypersoft runners? As you say, it could be marginal. And Joe now has gone quickest of all with a 1:7.93. Sorry, 1.7. Oh, pardon me. 1 minute 7.399. 2,000s between the top 3 cars. James, that's just ridiculous.
That is incredible. I can't believe how close that is. That is something. I was saying to you before, I was like, could you imagine if we got a Jerez-style qualifying where we have the top 3 on the exact same time? You know what? That's damn well nearly happened, doesn't it? 2,000ths of a second. That's like blinder. That's like little I don't even know. Just a little the slightest of margins. And it probably could have been the top 3 on the exact same lap time. But I mean, 2,000s is a bad way to start this qualifying session around Canada, is it?
No, it's not. It's a very short lap, 1 minute 7.399, one of the shortest on the entire calendar. So it really does explain further how the times are so tight. But even still, to get them so closely matched is quite incredible. As Car Powerful comes to the line now, and he did a 1 minute 7.5 there, but invalidated his lap. He was actually picking up a toe from his teammate Veloci Surprise in front. Now we saw in Spain that those two worked together as a team to favour Surprise, didn't they? Car Powerful jumping out the way of Surprise. Now is Surprise maybe trying to help his teammate out to help him later on in the Grand Prix? Perhaps give him a toe. Simon now goes quicker still, a 1 minute 7.323. What do you make of Simon of late, James? He really has just started to turn it on, isn't he? Not just in ILR but in other leagues as well. He's found incredible pace from somewhere. No one can quite understand where, but the German driver is rapid at the moment, isn't he?
He's in great form, and the last 2 races in ILR, to be fair, have been completely out of his control. So maybe more so, well yeah, Monaco was quite difficult for him. He'd had a really good race, but I mean, ultimately it got slightly hindered with the race start, to be fair. It really did hold his charge. Simon's a man who will win a Grand Prix this year, I have no doubt. So, to be honest, it could come this weekend. Let's just see what his pace is like, although Surprise will have something to say about that. With a 7.2, some 1/10 of a second faster than his rival Simon in P2. what a qualifying session this could be with just over 6 minutes to go.
Yeah, some really impressive pace there shown by Surprise, Simon and Joel, quite a distance ahead of everyone else. Let's have a look at Veloci Limitless then. He's currently P4 at the moment. He's had a bit of a, well, I don't know how to explain his season so far, ups and downs you could probably say. I mean, he's not been here for Baku and Monaco, once on holiday and once I think due to eSports. He's missed out so far this season, so that's 2 non-scores for Limitless, and on top of that a really dodgy 13th place in Bahrain in a race that went messy. But the other 3 occasions he has been on the podium, so he's showing that he does have the pace in 3 out of the 4 races he's completed to really contend over the course of the season. So with eSports coming to a close in the not too distant future next week, hopefully Limitless can knuckle down and start to show the kind of pace he's capable of. I mean, we've seen it in the eSports with some fine results for the Red Bull driver. Well, as Renault in the eSports, Red Bull here, and he'll be looking to continue that form here in ILR. We're watching him now as he heads down into the hairpin. What can he do on this specific lap? He's going a little bit deep there into that hairpin, a fantastic place for the fans to watch on. You sometimes get a little bit of side-by-side action down there, but the majority of it is done down this long back straight where the DRS is open and down towards turn 1. So Limitless then heading down towards the famous Wall of Champions, that bumpy chicane, getting up close and personal with the wall. Here comes Limitless for the line. What's the time going to be? It's a 1 minute 7.999. No improvement there, James.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he slightly cut the corner as well into the final chicane just before the Wall of Champions, which we'll get onto. But yeah, Limitless this season for me, maybe that slight bit of inconsistency. Of course, he hasn't been here for a couple of events, but I think it's the consistency and just staying out of trouble as well, because Limitless has been prone at some points this year. Spain is a big one for me, where he just seemed to get himself into potentially battles that maybe weren't needed. I mean, some probably wasn't his fault in the form of Spain with the Reynolds incident, but it's just staying away from those kind of instances, and this guy will know that, so there's no doubt he may even win a Grand Prix again this year. This could be another guy who will be maybe applauding for a race win, and I'm sure he will get one as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to totally agree with that. I think Limitless is certainly a contender for a race win. And I think VSR Holland, a dark horse, he might even win one at one point. The number of podiums and number of strong results that VSR Holland has picked up. 2 podiums in the last 3 races, 2 thirds and a 4th position. How good has he been since the season began? Some of the performances in race trim have been quite incredible, and he will certainly be one to watch. But everyone in the pits at the moment, or the majority are, Hayden's out there, Carpelfield's out there, but it looks like the majority are going for those hyper soft tyres to qualify on. No ultra softs, no super softs in qualifying, but those outside the top 10, as James alluded to, will probably go supers or ultras for that preferred strategy. So yeah, it's shaping up for a thrilling end to qualifying, but what about Dralix, James? And his home circuit, he's out there on an outlap at the moment, the only Canadian in the great to see the Canadian driver out there at home, and all the Canadians in the grandstands and in downtown Montreal will be cheering him on in the pubs as well, won't they?
Absolutely right, and it's very weird that in league racing these days, because league racing, to be completely honest, Andy, and you know it as well, is such a British-dominated field. Most leagues you'll find are British-dominated. And to be fair, ILR isn't going to be totally different, but we have got the Canadians, the Germans in Simon, and we've got a few others in the mix as well. And, you know, people like Dralix are going to be loving events like this. Canadian Grand Prix, home Grand Prix, so let's just hope for his sake that he can get a good result as he heads and flies down in towards turn 2.
Yeah, Dralix on a lap. Let's see what he can do then in front of his home crowd as he heads down through this difficult chicane. It's quite tricky on the opening lap, very easy on this racetrack to cut corners, a lot like Melbourne, if not worse, due to those several high-speed chicanes that you approach, and it could be a race that is defined on corner cut penalties, that's decided by corner cut penalties, as Dralix opens up the DRS once again, goes underneath the flyover and breaks down into another one of these tricky chicanes, and then heads down towards the hairpin. Melanie there on the left-hand side, moving out the way of Dralix as he heads down and breaks hard into that hairpin, but goes very, very deep in. That will improve his exit, but surely losing time there as he gets up to speed towards the end of the lap. Can find himself up in the top 5 or 6 spots. If he could, it would be a magnificent result at his home track, wouldn't it?
Absolutely it would be, and let's just see how it negotiates the final couple of corners. Takes a lot of curve on the inside for the final chicane and runs it really out wide and keeps the car nailed towards the wall, and he stays in P8. I'm not sure. I think he's slightly improved there, Drolex, but it's only enough for P8 at the moment. That could be his final run in qualifying.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes then. So it's still Veloci Surprise on top. Simon is out there though. Is he on an outlap or is he on a quick one? It is a slow one for Simon. He's half a second down through the second sector. So we wait for Joe, we wait for Limitless, we wait for Veloci Surprise to deliver their final efforts. VSR Holland is starting one now. So let's see what the Haas driver can do. Driver of the day on a number of occasions so far this season. Those Haas cars, VSR Holland and VSR Morso, so many times we have seen them come charging through the field and very nearly get both cars on the podium. But say VSR Holland, he has been a little bit more successful, hasn't he, in picking up those podium spots.
Absolutely right. The point I want to make with him, though, is you looked at Verstappen over the course of earlier on this season, when he's taken all the grid penalties in real life F1. How back he started, how well he then did to get onto a podium. Now, the thought was always behind, what would have happened if he'd have started maybe 11th, had the alternate strategy and kept going? Well, in this case for Holland, it's quite similar. What would it be like if he got close enough to the front of the pack to be able to challenge for a race win? I think that's the next step for him. Joe's retired, so he's already bottled his lap. He won't be getting pole position today, but Holland will be flying around the final couple of corners. Limitless is also retired. He's finished qualifying. Holland flies throughout the exit of the final two corners up towards the line. Where can Holland go? He'll remain in P5, but it's a good effort from the Haas driver.
Yeah, it was actually a 1 minute 7.3 there, so he must have cut a corner somewhere that's cost him. So that would have, or could have been, a superb lap. But VSR
teammates beating him.
Is coming round the final couple of corners. Murso's gone fifth, but here comes Simon for the line. Is it Paul? No, it's not, and that virtually guarantees Veloci Surprise will be surely on pole unless Melanie or Hayden, Verstappen or Car Powerful can do anything about it. We'll watch Surprise. He's coming into the pits. He's bailed out of the lap. Well, it was all building up to a thrilling end to qualifying, and absolutely nobody out there could improve. What about Car Powerful though? He is coming towards the end of the lap. He's going to negotiate the final chicane. He's had one pole already this season in Spain. Does he have the pace to go up towards the front row? He stays P17 and doesn't improve. So it's 17th for Car Powerful. Hayden, meanwhile, crosses the line and he stays P11. So all that flurry of activity at the end of the session, and the only man that managed to improve was VSR Murso, and it's all Haas. Third row of the grid, and we've come to see that a lot this season. Those guys just bunching up behind the main protagonist for the victory. But it's Veloci Surprise, James, that's got the pole here by just under a tenth of a second to VSR Simon in second.
Absolutely. Great effort once again from Surprise. It's no surprise, in fact, that he's going to take a pole position. I don't think he's taken one too recently, from what I can recall. It's been a fair while, really, since Surprise took a pole, I would think. So, yeah, in fact, really good job from Surprise, getting it on pole position, somewhere where he wants to be. And if there was a weakness this year, you could say potentially for Surprise it is that he hasn't qualified on pole at most Grand Prix this year. But he does start on pole here today, alongside Simon on the front row. Joe and Limitless line up on row 2. The two Haas cars start on row 3, and it may be the first time this season Morso's out-qualified his teammate Holland. I could be wrong on that front. Gorsh does start from 7th ahead of Melanie on row 4. Then Drelex in his home Grand Prix ahead of Reynolds on row 5. Hayden and Jordt make up row 6. Mike and Verstappen make up the 7th row. Langman is going to try the alternate strategy, it looks like. He'll start from 15th. 16th was, oh goodness me, I can't quite remember who it was, but 17th at the back of the grid is Car Powerful.
Yep, well, we'll see how it goes then as we get ready for the Canadian Grand Prix. It's dry conditions greeting us here on race day. It looks like it's going to be a tussle between those top 4, doesn't it, for the victory this afternoon, with those two Haas drivers just tucking in behind, waiting to feed off any scraps. But it promises to be another fantastic race. I must apologise if my voice sounds different or if I'm coughing and spluttering from... I am full of the cold, and I have been all week long. It's not been great. But enough of that, enough of the sob story. Let's get down to business here at the Canadian Grand Prix. Now, it's going to be interesting, James, isn't it? What kind of strategy everyone outside the top 10 goes for? Ultras and Supers, is that the most likely?
I'd suppose that'd be the most likely strategy, yes. I think you're going to have a lot more tyre wear with that kind of strategy. The other thing I just want to pick up on really quickly is those, you know, we come to it most Grand Prix, but those two Haas cars that we keep talking about. But actually, every single race this year, they've always seemingly had a better race car than their qualifying car. So it's not to say that their grid position today is a very, very good grid position to be in. What is their race car like, though? What's it going to be like for this race? Hopefully it'll be good enough to challenge those top four. I don't expect that those top four will walk away with this. It's going to be really close, this one, as we head on to the formation lap.
Yep, formation lap underway, and we can finally get a look at those tyres. But yeah, absolutely. I think this is probably the best or the strongest qualifying of the season so far from Haas. So if this is how good they are in qualifying trim, I can't wait to see how good they are in race trim. I think they're going to have some sleeve here. They could be brilliant to see. But it is Veloci Surprise on pole position, the majority of the field on the Hypersoft tyre. Surprise, Simon, Joe, Limitless, your top four, those drivers of Merceau and Holland 5th and 6th. Also on the Hypersoft, Gosh Crab, Melanie and Dralix 7th, 8th and 9th. They are also on the Hypersoft. The first of the Ultrasoft runners, the EVR Reynolds in 10th. Then it's LCR Hayden. Then it's Jork, all on the Ultrasoft tyre. Mike Marshmallow in P13 has gone for the Supersoft. VRT Verstappen has gone for the Ultrasoft. Langman, Overkill and Powerful have gone for the Supersofts, and they have done exactly as you suspected, James. It looks like they're going to go Supers to Ultras and Ultras to Supers.
Absolutely right. Watch out for Reynolds, because that's a really good effort that he's gone into P10 on those Ultrasoft tyres. Of course, he doesn't get free reign on his tyre compound, so to start from 10th on Ultrasoft, he could be one to watch as this race goes on. He could have a very, very good afternoon here. Let's see what he does, though, because, you know, the strategy is a little bit mixed and a little bit wide open for those guys ahead of him, so he's got to take advantage as the Sauber driver. We're heading onto the grid for the Canadian Grand Prix. Yeah,
here they come then, round onto the grid for round 7 of the championship. Veloci Surprise currently has a 20-point lead in the standings. He's won 4 of the 6 races so far, a 3rd in Bahrain, a 4th in Monaco. The only man that's been able to stop him so far this season is Joe. He starts from P3, directly behind Surprise on the grid, but starting alongside Surprise is VSR Simon, who's shown some great pace in recent weeks. Is this finally the Grand Prix where he picks up his maiden win in ILR? We'll find out as the 5 red lights go out and we are racing here in Canada. It's a short run down to turn 1. Veloci Surprise holds the inside line and holds the lead as they funnel their way through turns 1 and 2. Look at OMG, it's Joe. He's fighting alongside Simon. Can he now get onto the inside and make a move as they go down the hill? I don't think so. He stays in behind. It's Simon 2nd, it's Joe 3rd, it's Limitless 4th, and the 2 Hassies are 5th and 6th, James.
Absolutely, it's not really been too much action on that first couple of corners. In fact, Simon had a really good launch initially, he just couldn't get alongside. But Williams into turn 1 really did struggle. Joe was going to play second fiddle almost, trying to go around the outside of the McLaren. Couldn't quite get it done. Limitless had a really tame. He's 4th place. Those 2 Haas cars haven't changed around either. It's all stayed pretty clean at the start, which hasn't been said for a lot of Grand Prix this season.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Veloci Limitless looking the closest to making a move at the moment. VSR more so right in there behind him. Be well further down the field, Hayden and Jork appear to be doing battle. They're side by side and Hayden's got that move done, but Jork is not giving up on it. And Wigan fan having a look at the back of Hayden. He's going to pull alongside Hayden on the run down towards the Wall of Champions. Is he going to make that move stick? No, he's not. Hayden holds on, breaks a little bit later, looks very confident there on the brake pedal and holds on to that P11. Veloci Surprise immediately pumps in the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, but is only 4/10 ahead of Simon. That looks like a sign of things to come, a tight battle between those guys at the front. 4/10 between the top 2, then Joe in 3rd, and Limitless already a second off in 4th and under threat from the 2 Haas drivers. This battle though in the midfield raging on. They've got Dralix, Reynolds, Hayden and Jork all in a good little scrap. Can Dralix pick up points on home soil? That will surely be his aim this afternoon. Picking up points in the last 3 races, a 6th, a 9th and an 8th. He's currently in 9th at the moment, so Dralix could be on for some more points this afternoon, James.
Absolutely right. It would be a good points haul as well if he just nails the strategy. As I say, the 1 stop is possible for these guys, but I'm not sure how much he'll be willing to risk that 2 stop. He's going to have a lot more tyre wear, and of course that's the big element of this season, is those tyre temperatures, those carcass temperatures, which will be going through the roof apparently on those Hypersoft tyres. Early doors of this Grand Prix though, and actually Surprise isn't exactly pulling away from the pack. He's staying right, quite a marginal gap. It's around half a second between himself and the McLaren. The Ferrari of Joe isn't too far behind either. This isn't a race that's going to be won very easily for Surprise. It's going to have to work for this.
Yeah, absolutely right. As Hayden and Jork do battle once again down towards turn 1. Jork on the inside this time of LCR. Hayden is squeezed out, runs out of road, and now Verstappen are touching wheels, are they, as they climb through turns 2 and 3, and it looks like they're still going side by side, but I think Hayden has to concede the place, and through goes VRT Verstappen up into P12. All those guys on the super soft runners have went backwards at the start. Langman, Mike Marshmallow, Car Powerful and Overkill's the back 4 runners, all on the super soft. So right, strangely, I mean, I know it seems quite simple that this would happen, but usually it doesn't. But the top 9, all hypersofts. 10th to 13th, all ultra soft. 14th to last, all super soft. They're all sorting themselves out into tyre compound, aren't they?
Absolutely right. And to be fair for Langman and those guys who are on those super soft tyres, they don't really need to fight.
Oh, sorry about that, with the contact there, right down at the back of the pack there. That was Mike Marshmallow and Car Purple. I think Purple stuck his nose up the inside into a gap. It was always going to disappear. It might have been vice versa, but I think it was Purple having a look at Mike, and there was slight contact there between the two. Is there any damage on Purple's car? I don't think so. He gets away with it without any problems as Mike and Overkill do battle through the chicane. But yeah, sorry, carry on with what you were saying there, George.
Absolutely, those super soft runners, I was going to say, they just don't need to really get into any sort of contact, any sort of fights. And Drake's just moved past Melanie into P8 in this Grand Prix. The Canadian is going to be happy with that one. He's made the move stick on the Sauber, and there's a massive scoreboard behind. Look at this, from P8 all the way down to a good around P10, P11. They're all in this. The 2 Saubers as well, who've had some pretty good races this year, has to be said, Melanie and Reynolds. The alternate strategy has worked out for them so far this season. Could Jork get on the back of this scrap as well as they head up towards turn 9, I believe, in turn 9 and 10. And that's what follows swiftly on. There's yellow flags in sector 2.
Yeah, the yellow flags in sector 2, not sure why at the moment. We'll watch these 2 Sauber drivers doing battle. Reynolds is up the inside into the hairpin on his teammate, and the Melon Man is overtaken. Through goes Reynolds up into P9, and Jork fancies getting himself involved as well. And here comes the Renault sliding alongside Melanie and making that move stick. DRS active for the first time this afternoon, and surely Jork will complete that move on the brakes. He has the inside line, and he has P10. Melanie down to P11, and the batting everywhere for Melanie, and he's now under serious pressure from VRT Verstappen. And are those hypersoft tyres slowly starting to go, James? It would certainly seem that way on Melanie's car.
A lot of people, and they said if there was a safety car that came out on lap 4, speaking with some of the guys before the race, they said if it was a lap 4 and a safety car came out, for example, they said, we'd probably pit, because these hypersoft tyres just won't go that long into the Grand Prix. I can almost see a few of them stopping in the next couple of laps or so, maybe even like lap 8, lap 9, completely out the realms of possibility. But look at Verstappen, he's closing right in on Melanie. Verstappen hasn't had a point this season, and he'll have a point to prove coming into Canada, because it's not been the season that he'd have hoped for. Bahrain was a big showing from Verstappen, and I did think that he'd get points there, but Verstappen all over the back of Melanie now, down in towards the hair, but he's down the inside as Verstappen, and will he get the move done on the brakes? Looks like he will. He'll bang that Sauber around the corner, just Verstappen has to slide behind. He'll have to try and go once again down in towards the final chicane.
Yeah, it looks like Verstappen's going to pull alongside Melanie now and make that move stick. Here comes Verstappen down the inside, and he completes the move on Melanie and moves up into P11. Now, with that DRS active, I think it's time to go to the front, because look at Simon. He's been able to stay within DRS territory, to Veloci's surprise, until the DRS was opened. And now look, he's right up behind him, and they've dropped Joe for dead. So I don't know what's happened to Joe, but he's had a nightmare couple of laps and dropped right off the tail of the duo, and now dropping slowly into the clutches of Veloci Limitless, isn't he?
Absolutely right, and he won't be wanting to do that unless these 2 ahead get into any sort of squabbles. Let's not forget Joe's on hyper soft tyres. He could just pit earlier. I mean, I'd be thinking let's just pit sooner and get off these absolute dreaded tyres, because they are dreaded tyres. They are horrible, the hyper soft tyres. The temperatures go through the roof, saying it's just not the tyre that you want to Grand Prix. And Simon now has got a really good run on surprise. They enter towards the final chicane. It's just how much toe will that McLaren get in towards turn 1. There's a good opportunity for him, whatever he decides to do through turn 1 and turn 2.
Yeah, it doesn't look like on this occasion it's going to quite work out for Simon. Maybe the battle between Jork and Dralix is a little bit more tasty. It is. Jork having a look round the outside of Dralix. Quite do that as we have our first hypersoft pitter. VSR Holland is at the side of a 2-stop. Perhaps it is. Jork now moves ahead, or does he? Still side by side with Verstappen. He goes round the outside, and Jork still battling away there. Verstappen trying to get that move on York completed, but he can't do it round the outside. He's right in the middle here of a Toro Rosso sandwich as the York and the Renault, and at the moment he's just about holding on, but Verstappen is all over the back of him and just unable to make that move at the end of that first sector.
Absolutely. Verstappen is not too far behind now, and of course York ahead of him. It's not out of the grounds as a possibility. Veerstar Holland has come in and is back out on ultra soft tyres. So I think, yeah, you're possibly right there, Andy. We'll be going on that two-stop strategy. A move though ahead. More so is ahead of Reynolds. I'm not sure why it's showing that. Oh no, sorry, Reynolds is ahead of Gorsh. And that's what's happened. It's the rain starting to fall though. Rain is starting to fall at the Canadian Grand Prix. Unbelievable scenes. Early doors here, the rain's starting to fall. I'm sure I saw spits of rain there.
Yeah, it is raining. Well, at the start of the race, it was bone dry out there. The sun was shining. Where are we, Scott? This is crazy. What is going on here in Canada? Well, that's usually something we see back home in Scotland from time to time. You'll experience that this weekend, James, I'm sure, when you're up here. But very often, it's just sunny one minute, rains the next minute, and that's pretty much what's happened here in Canada. And the rain is beginning to fall, and looking out from the commentary box window, the brollies are going up all around the grandstands. The rain is falling, and Surprise and Simon are going to have to tippy-toe around. Is this Hypersoft tyre going to work for them? Are they going to be in a good enough state by the time it gets wet enough, or is this going to favour those on Ultras and Supers? Surely the Hypersofts will have enough in them to get to there.
Yeah, Gorsh has gone really sideways. Alex just went sideways as well. Chalk is all over the back of Gorsh Crab as they're heading towards the hairpin. He'll think better of it though to go for a move. Verstappen got past his teammate as well in the Toro Rosso. Another fine little drive in from VRT Verstappen. He'll just want to keep it there. And what you're saying is absolutely right. Those guys on Superstocks, as the rain comes a little bit later, it stays here for that little bit longer, they will benefit massively in this Grand Prix. Into the pit comes Joe. Chalk is side by side with Gorsh. Down next towards the front. Looks like he'll get the move done. Indeed he does. Verstappen is not so far behind him, and the force team is going to be under huge pressure from Verstappen. Verstappen on the outside. Gorsh stays on the inside. In towards turn number 1. Joe's on intermediates. Into turn 1 goes Verstappen. He's round the outside of the Force India and gets the move done.
Yeah, I was looking at Joe's car in the pits there. He's not the only man out.
Instas for a lot of cars.
Yeah, so many cars going on to the intermediate tyre. That's incredible. Joe, Dralex, the home favourite, Langman, they're all pouring in. Mike's in, Purple's in, and Hayden's in. And a lot of those drivers weren't even on. A lot of them were on super soft, so that tells you the rain's coming down heavy. And look at Surprise, really struggling out there now. Simon is all over the back of him like a rash, and that's the disadvantage about being the lead car. You arrive in the conditions first, and he's gone very deep into the corner. Simon can use Surprise as a reference point then, but look at them struggling out there, sliding everywhere. Reynolds is going like a steam train, past Limitless now, and Morso's up to third. Limitless must be struggling so much on those Hypersoft tyres, and look at York and Verstappen eating up the distance.
He's lost front wing, Limitless. He's lost a load of his front wing. The front wing end plate's completely gone on that right-hand side. Two leaders decide to come into the pits and possibly boys. Joe could take the lead of the Canadian Grand on lap 9. What a turn of events this is. Surprise is in, but will he get held in the stop? He has been held in the stop. That could lose him potentially. No, it's not, and he does come out still ahead of Simon. It's a big call this, and a lot of guys are going to Winters. Joe coming down the pit straight. There is Surprise into the top left-hand corner. Can Joe get into front? No, he can't, but he'll get a lot closer to those two ahead, and his tyres will be far more into optimal temperatures.
Wow, look at this. It's really starting to shake up the race now. Incredibly, no difference there between those top 3 drivers. I really felt Joe would have managed to make the move stick. We saw how much Veloci Surprise and VSR Simon were struggling out the back of the circuit, but somehow they managed to tippy-toe back, unlike Veloci Limitless, who's dropped out to P10 after making contact with something rather firmer than his front wing, presumably a barrier, and that's now promoted VSR Morso up to 4th, and EVR Reynolds, who started 10, up to P5. Goodness me, what a race he's having.
Absolutely, I think I kind of called it in the formation up, so watch out for him. He might have a stellar drive this weekend. He might have a good afternoon. Looks like he is having a good afternoon, taking P5. Limitless has lost out massively, and that's down to the front wing. Lang, well, he's up into P9 Ferrari, And maybe the size advantage here, perhaps being on a pad. I'm not too sure what the difference is like. I haven't heard a lot about the wet weather. 2 penalties though come in for the top 2 of Simon and Verstappen.
So Simon picked up 1 there. Did Surprise pick up 1? No, nothing for Surprise. So that's not good news for VSR Simon then. The Surprise is slowly finding himself back into the rhythm before the stops. Oh, we've lost James. Okay. Oh, hold on. I was wondering if he cut out on us there. Bear with us, folks. I'm going to try and get him back into here. That's not good. Let's see if I can get him back.
I can still hear you, but I don't know what's actually happened. Just carry on. I'll get myself back in.
I'm going to invite you right now.
I'll try. Okay.
Please tell me that was the game I invited you to, and not the party. What did I invite you to?
Nothing.
You got that? Did you get that? No?
No.
Okay, hold on. Let me try that again. Apologies, folks. Invite to game. Did you get that?
Yeah, right, let's go.
Right, that's good. Right, so let's go back to the action then. We'll get James back in a few moments' time. Apologies for that, folks. From time to time we have little mishaps here and there. There's nothing we can do about it. Out with our hands is EVR Reynolds now, as James rightly called before the Grand Prix. Could have a fine afternoon. Well, he's currently having a fine afternoon as Joe now picks up a 3-second time penalty. But Reynolds right up behind the back of Merso. Interestingly, VSR Holland has dropped right 16. I presume he has also had a bad afternoon, maybe contacted the barrier somewhere along the way, as Reynolds now dives up the inside on VSR Merso, and he's through, and Reynolds looking really handy, really confident in these damp conditions, and there's nothing Merso can do, and Reynolds just flies past him up into P4 as if he wasn't even there. And if Merso can't find any pace soon, York will be on him. Wow, Reynolds is absolutely flying out there. And next up on his radar is OMG It's Joe, the Sauber driver, being a contender here for driver of the day, you would think, James.
Absolutely right, he's done a fine job, hasn't he, in P4. Joe isn't really staying up the tabs with the leaders, and it's kind of surprising actually. I thought he would have been a lot closer than what he is at this stage of the proceedings, but he can't quite get that Ferrari to dart around these corners as quickly as he potentially would have done. But there, look at that, Trolix in P7, Verstappen P8, a great day in the office at the moment for the Toro Rossos, but they may come to a slight halt when they see the Ferrari of Langman and Limitless bearing down on them for 7th and 8th in this Grand Prix.
Yep, could be a tough second half of the race for the two Toro Rossos. It's been a fine afternoon, as you say, so far. It's raining on their parade now, and Dralek's currently P7 at home. I don't think he'll have too many complaints if he can come away with that come at the end of this Grand Prix, but you never know. The barriers are very, very close here. There's always a chance of a safety car. There's always a chance of putting your car into the wall, and there's always a chance of penalties. There's 3 drivers in quick succession there pick up time penalties. Hayden, Powerful, and who was the other one? It's happened so quickly. They're all
Hayden, I think.
So yeah, and they're crazy there to see so many penalties popping up. But I'm not too surprised at the moment on lap 13 out of 35. Looks like he's got the upper hand on Simon in these damp conditions, doesn't he?
Absolutely, and he's Welsh after all, isn't he, Veloce Sprite? So he knows a lot of the wet weather that you get to grips with, and another set of penalties flying in as well. Yeah, he's doing a fine job now on those intermediate tyres, his Surprise. I don't know what his wet weather tyres, well, even racing, has been like for him this season. We haven't really had, and I think this must be the first wet sort of racing we've had this season, other than the qualifying session, of course, in Baku, but we haven't really had any wet weather running, so this is kind of a depth into the unknown for a lot of these guys. It's a big test, actually. This really does separate the best drivers from those that don't practice as much, perhaps. Yeah,
and I think the other thing to note is in that wet qualifying we had, the 2 men that performed admirably were EVR Reynolds and Jort 94, and Reynolds, we've just seen him make a move on Morsel, and Jort now will be lining up Morsel pretty soon. So are those two, if the rain was to worsen further, going to be ones to watch as the race goes on? Have they got the pace to start taking it closer to the top guys? I mean, he has 9 seconds, Reynolds, off the back of Joe at the moment. I mean, we can monitor it, but I think his chances of getting there by the end of the Grand Prix are pretty slim, it has to be said. I mean, Jort on for Morsel, that could be a possibility. Those two, remember, Reynolds and Jort on the front row in that hectic, crazy, relentless, mental qualifying session in Baku. But at the moment, It is still Veloci Surprise in control from Simon and Joe in third. What about Car Powerful? He looks like he's in close battle, a very close battle there with Melanie for P13 and 14. And look at Holland getting involved as well. And look at the traction that Holland's got. And he's going to overtake Powerful with ease and surely steam past Melanie as well as they run down to the braking zone. And Holland is through and up into P13 as Veloci Surprise picks up an uncharacteristic penalty there as I die in the background. Goodness me.
Absolutely, if you're going to do it quietly. But Holland did come up pretty quietly there, didn't he? Come from absolutely nowhere to get that move done. He's had a really disappointing afternoon on his standards from him. He's only 13th in the Grand Prix, but we know he's got the pace to make it into the point, so I'd like to think he'd be able to make it into the point in this Grand Prix as well. Haven't really seen too much of him in the wet weather conditions. Again, Baku wasn't a bad place for him in qualifying for the wet conditions. He didn't have a bad qualifying session at times. He was on pole by half a second. But that really did go to pot towards the end of the session. Holland, though, it's starting to close up on the next couple of cars, the two Force Indias of course Grab and Mike Marshmallow, who, again, haven't had the season that they were perhaps hoping for going into it. Of course, had a good qualifying session to line in P7, and as soon as we get onto him, gets himself a time penalty. Langman is starting to close right up, though, to the youngster VRT Verstappen.
Yep, looks like Langman and Limitless are slowly beginning to reel in those Toro Rossos. The first man will be Verstappen, who's quietly gone about his business and climbed up through the field, hasn't he? VRT Verstappen over the course of this Grand Prix. So getting closer and closer is the Ferrari, and is he going to make that move anytime soon? It certainly looks like it. In the damp conditions, bit Canada, I would say slightly more difficult actually to overtake. Quite often in the wet weather it is easier to overtake in real life F1, but without the DRS to your aid, it might be slightly trickier. James, would you go along with that on this circuit?
It would be. Some of the traction zones for these guys are going to be a real pain. The curbs aren't exactly helpful in that sense, so actually, yeah, it would be a bit of a struggle, but Canada's always throwing up good races when it's in the wet. Let's just throw it back to 2011. And Jenson Button, who come back from having something like 6 or 7 pit stops that day and still won the Grand Prix, so anything's possible. Reynolds was starting to close up a little bit to Joe, to be fair. He was 7.5 seconds behind the Ferrari. He's kind of lost it a little bit over the course of half a lap or so, but he's one to watch still. I would completely rule out Reynolds, and what a performance that would be if he could throw himself onto the rostrum in this Grand Prix. Langman is still on the back of Verstappen, and Verstappen, like I said, he has had a really frustrating start to this season. Really hasn't got going at all. I don't think has scored a point at all this season, so this is a big result for him. If he can stay in P8, that's a good haul of points for him, and maybe a turning point in this season. There's still a long way to go. It's only round 7 of the championship, so he'll be hoping to boost on from here and to start to gain some more points on a more consistent basis for the Toro Rosso team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's under real threat now, Langman, getting closer and closer as Simon also starts to get closer and closer to Veloci Surprise. Under 2 seconds now. Simon starting to find his feet and reel him in. Joe simply does not have an answer for those guys. 6 seconds off the back of them now. Murso dropping off Reynolds at 3.6 seconds now after that move was made earlier on. George slowly clawing him in and might get there pretty soon. But this is definitely the focus on the track at the moment, along with that battle for 14th, Melanie and Powerful. But let's keep an eye on Langman. Is he going to make that move anytime soon? He wants to get through on Verstappen, doesn't want to waste any time, because if he does waste time, you know who'll be coming in to snatch the place away. Veloci Limitless, and we know that he is more than capable of pouncing at any opportunity that comes available to him. And we saw back in Spain his great pace that he had that afternoon, when he had that incident with Reynolds and still managed to come back through to earn a podium. So there's no doubting his class as he gets closer and closer to the back of Langman. Yes, James, what have you seen? Dralix has gone, oh no, oh
yeah.
no.
Let's try and get him back in. But what I was going to say about Verstappen and Langman, to be honest, I know it sounds like maybe a weird thing to say, but it's not often that these two really come into battle too often. And in this sense, it's actually quite a weird battle to have, because Verstappen hasn't scored a point this season, and Langman hasn't scored enough points this season. So I can sort of see it being quite a tentative battle. They won't really want to wreck each other's races at this point. It's going to be really close. Let's not get away from that. It's going to be really close between the two of them. But they're going going to be thinking about it a lot, I'd have thought, about this battle, because they will not want to be running over each other. They won't want to be causing any contact. That's been the large weakness of these two in particular this season. They really have struggled in sometimes wheel-to-wheel combat, sometimes just average mistakes on circuit. And these guys are very young, so they're always going to improve, but it's just early doors, and let's see what these two will do. It's a nice little battle, though, for P7 now in this Grand Prix, and we hope to get Dralex back into the session.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully we can get him back in. Hopefully he can still collect the point. He's still about 4 seconds ahead of Gorge and Mike, who are 11th and 12th for Force India. So there is still an opportunity if he can join back within the next few moments, you would think, for Dralex to gather some points from this Grand Prix. But Langman, at the moment, proving the theory that looking at overtake when the weather's damp is very difficult, because he's not even getting into a position to make any sort of inroad or overtake on VRT Verstappen at the moment, and Limitless is not actually getting closer and closer to him, and Limitless in the Red Bull is on the move at the moment, isn't he?
Absolutely right. He'll be coming up to this battle very, very shortly, and if we call back to the Bahrain Grand Prix, Verstappen did get into a slight contact with the Red Bull, and it was quite controversial, but we'll gloss over from that. Dralex just left the session again. But yeah, they did come into a little bit of battles of the Red Bulls and the Toro Rossos over the course of this season. Carl Powerful is now out as well. It's going to be interesting. The gap between the front two, though, that is starting to close up a little bit more. 1.7 seconds between Simon and Surprise. There's still a little bit of room left in this Grand Prix, some 16 laps. So actually, it's not over yet for anyone in the top two, really. The top three look a bit out of sorts, but let's see. Gosh has got past Dralex, and that's because he's a ghost car. Mike will soon follow him through.
Yep, we've not actually got any official retirements from the Grand Prix yet. I think Overkill out there is circulating but disconnected, and I think that's the same, of course, for Dralex, as we know, but he will be trying, I think, to get back in. Is Overkill out there on his own? He's actually still driving, I don't think he's actually disconnected. I think he is still out on the road. He's just 51 seconds off the back of Car Powerful and not having a great afternoon, is he? Maybe it's his AI, I'm not actually really sure. Joe has just spun, has he? Is that Joe spinning? Yes, he has.
He has, yes.
Joe has just gone for a spin down at turn 2. I was actually looking on board with Overkill, and Joe's car went spinning round, and he's lost a heap load of time, and Reynolds is now only 2.9 seconds behind him, so it looked like he just overcooked it into turn 1, did what Massa did a few years ago. I think it was 2013. Round he went and into a spin, and now Reynolds is right within range, isn't he?
Absolutely right. It's very unusual that you see that. Mike Marshmallow has also, I think, gone off at turn 1. There's a few movers. In fact, Holland's gone off as well. He's made contact with Hayden. I'm not sure what's going on here with the Haas. I think this could be wet tyre time, Andy. I don't think this is Inters anymore. I think these guys are really starting to struggle out there on those intermediate tyres. I think the rain's now coming down too much that perhaps the wet tyres may be a factor, may be able to be used here. They're really struggling out there. It could be a chance for the wet tyres to be used, and we don't often get to see them in action, so that's something to look forward to. But yeah, Joe, very uncharacteristic spin. You don't often see that. They are coming up to lap overkills as well. But Reynolds, that will be a huge confidence boost for the Sauber driver, knowing that the guy ahead of him is prone to mistakes.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, it does look as if it's raining a lot heavier out there. It's lashing down. It's one of those miserable afternoons here in Montreal. We don't get many of them. But yeah, it really is starting to chuck down, and it's only really going to get worse, it would seem. But yeah, as you say, extremely unusual for Joe to make that mistake. That blows any hope he had. He didn't really have much anyway of getting first or second this afternoon, and now he's got to focus on Reynolds behind, who looks like he's really started to threaten him, and it might have the pace to overhaul him for that P3. I mean, we need to count up the penalties. Can you give us an idea of certainly the top 4 cars roughly? Because I mean, it's going to be so many penalties.
The top 2 actually. Simon has 1 less penalty than Surprise. Simon is actually closing right up to Surprise as well. It's under 0.8 of a second now. Unbelievable. Well, these two decide to come in. No, they do decide to stay out. We're not sure how long this rain will last. It's now just coming and cropping over that second mark. But Simon will technically be winning this Grand Prix based on the number of penalties he has. He has less than Surprise. Surprise has 2. Simon's 1. Let's see what Joe has as we head further and further into this Grand Prix. Reynolds, as I've just seen, has had quite a few. Joe hasn't actually, well, he has got a penalty. He's got a 3-second time penalty. Reynolds has got a fair few on his hands. In fact, some 3 penalties to his name. So he will undoubtedly maybe not finish on the podium, as he would have expected, but he could finish there on the road. That's not completely out of the question just yet. So let's just see what Reynolds has to do in that Sauber, just to try and get ahead of Joe. It's 1.8 seconds the gap between those two. Verstappen is holding off Langman, who's gone really deep into turn 1. And Verstappen, that's no fault of his own. Mike has come into the pits. Now let's see what he does in the Force India. Let's see if he decides to come in for those wet tyres. In fact, an AI car of Drelix has also come in. What's Mike done? He's gone on to another set of intermediate tyres there. Okay, so maybe I was wrong. Maybe the tyres are just wearing out. Those inters are starting to wear out a little bit more than what I was predicting. So it's quite odd. Very, very odd. But that would mean then a few others may consider to stop.
Yeah, maybe. Well, will that mean Veloci Surprise comes in? It does mean he comes in. What will Simon do? He carries on. So Surprise into the pits then on these inters. And surely it will be another fresh set of inters. But will they get to the end? Surely they will. Surely they will. Veloci Surprise comes in. They've done 12 laps. They've got another 13 to do on these tyres. And a fresh set of inters goes on. Will he be ahead or behind Joe? Joe's coming down the start-finish straight towards turn 1. Where is Surprise? He's on the pit exit now. This is going to be pretty close, but I think Surprise will be able to do it, and he does. He comes out ahead of Joe, so it's still Simon from Surprise then, the top 2, and Surprise will surely start to reel Simon in as we get towards the conclusion of this Grand Prix, but surely Simon is also considering a pit stop from those intermediate tyres.
Absolutely, the Inters, I was surprised how quickly they've worn. That's quite weird. Only 14 laps on it, they've already decided, yeah, that's enough for us, and they're already gone. Hayden's actually managed to get himself into 11th place. Not a bad little drive from him. Okay, he has got to stop again. But yeah, not a bad race from his standards. You can see, oh, it's 2.5 seconds, well, 2 seconds now between Verstappen and Langman. So what's gone on there? Maybe Langman's made some sort of mistake, perhaps? The Ferrari's really losing out now. Yeah, to the Toro Rosso, and Limit, as you say, is all over the back of him as they head up towards the chicane. And this could be a battle between 2 drivers that perhaps may have wanted a little bit more coming out of this season, but let's just see what they do in terms of the racetrack and what they're like racing together. Yeah, Limitless then getting really close to Langman. He was really close coming out of turn 2 into turn 3, so unable to get the traction or the grip to make the move. But will either of these two be interested in a pit stop on this lap? No sign of Simon coming in still. He looks like he's going to continue out there on those intermediate tyres as Limitless heads down towards the final chicane. Is he coming in? No, he's not. No sign of a stop from any of those guys. Reynolds is coming in now, so quite interesting to see. Quite a few drivers carrying on out there on the inters, and some of them coming in. I mean, there's still guys out there that's done 14, 15 laps on intermediate tyres without pitting, so do they know something we don't? Do they think it's going to get heavier, or do they think it's going to dry up? Perhaps they do. Perhaps, but there's another thought I've just thought about, and if those inters are going off so much towards the end, actually, if the guys aren't able to hold them for that little bit longer, then perhaps they'll have a better shot at making some sort of overtaking manoeuvres in this Grand Prix on the early stages of the end stage of their tyre life, in which case Simon might be very, very quick towards the end if he decides to pit for inters. And he doesn't, he stays out. Does he know something we don't? Is it drying out there here in Canada? And if it is, this is a big call from all of these guys. Do they decide to stay out or to come in? Reynolds up the inside of Verstappen on those fresh tyres, and he shows just how much more grip there is, and he just dived up the inside with ease into the hairpin and takes away P6 from VRT Verstappen. Langman and Limitless still following each other. Limitless unable to do anything about him. Langman unable to do anything about Verstappen. It's so tricky in the damp conditions here in Canada to make a move, and now there's more cars coming into the pits. That was Langman coming in, Limitless coming in, so the majority of them now starting to bail out of this strategy. But Joe's done 16 laps on inters. He spun on them and still doesn't want to come in, so that suggests to me there could be a change in the weather or just an outright strategy call to stay out on them. Absolutely, I'm a bit confused really as to what to think of this Grand Prix now. Will it dry up? And that's the big question as we head into the last 10 laps of this Canadian Grand Prix. I'd say it's flown by. It really has gone by quite quickly, to be honest. And Verstappen has stayed out, but that's quite crucial in this Grand Prix. They're going to try and get an undercut now. These two, Langman and Limitless. That's a big surprise as well. Langman, who come into the pits 8th, has come out in 8th. That's quite weird. That sort of sets the gap between himself and the cars behind. Limitless has a lot of time in the pits as well, and there's some yellow flags in sector 1, and Holland is out of the Canadian Grand Prix, a man who's had such a good season. It's very uncharacteristic from him. It's just where did he do it on circuit? He's out of the Grand Prix in the house. We've not seen a lot of this year, and he's gone out on lap 26 of this Grand Prix. Not the sort of race he's been hoping for. He's had quite a frustrating afternoon, and not one that he'll like to recall over the course of this season.
Yeah, quite a hefty hit there for VSR Holland, and just running through towards the end of that first sector is where he's crashed. I presume he's lit up the rears and gone for a spin. Now, how much would we love a safety car here? It would really spice up the action. But I'm looking outside the commentary box window. The rain is not coming down as Limitless picks up a penalty now. And is that Hypersofts for VRT Verstappen? What?
Yeah. Wow. Imagine the scenes if he pulls this off. I don't think he will, because that is soaking.
I mean, I'm going to use a quote from Martin Brundle from the German Grand Prix. Are we at the same venue? Are we at the same venue? What are you doing? Get off of those tyres. That is right up there, fittingly in the same car as Pierre Gasly. It's right up there, alongside Gasly on the wet tyre, is the most ridiculous call I've ever seen in Formula 1. What are you doing on those tyres? And that bounce off the barrier pretty much confirms it. That is ludicrous.
It's a weird one, isn't it? And Verstappen is now having a really shocking afternoon. He was having a stunning race, was Verstappen. If he'd stayed on those inters, he'd have been having a stonking Grand Prix. But he's just made a very poor mistake there from Verstappen. It's not something you see a lot. Reynolds has jumped Joe in the pit stop. I've just noticed that. Reynolds has got ahead of the Ferrari. He's now only a half a second behind him. This is a nice little battle for the podium positions, and Joe has also found himself with a penalty, so he'll just hope that he won't equate to as many as Reynolds ahead of him. But yeah, Verstappen, he's not helping his cause this season. He really isn't, and that is something that I don't know what to say, Andy. It's quite it's frustrating, because we all want to see Verstappen and Bailey do well for himself, but in those kind of races, and these kind of races with those sorts of mistakes, it's just not acceptable. It's not something that you want to see. And he does bail out and come into the pits, and Hypersoft tyres. Yeah, I can't get my head around it.
Like, it's soaking out there. It's a washout. Like, why? Why? I mean, surely it was a mistake. Surely it was a mistake. They never meant to do it. I would presume it was. But yeah, good to see Reynolds, or interesting to see, I should say.
Reynolds!
Oh, big slide, big slide. Joe's right on him. Joe's right on him, and that mistake's going to cost him. It's Alfa Romeo versus Ferrari, and Joe's round the outside, and he takes what would be a net podium should Jork and Musso come into the pit. So Joe moves up back into what would be the podium ahead of Reynolds, and Reynolds just got the rear end of the car way out of shape. But interesting to see there's still 4 guys out there continuing on those intermediate tyres, and I have to say, James, the track is slowly starting to dry. It's not raining anywhere near as heavy as it was, and is Simon, Morso, Jork and Hayden all holding out there on the inters, waiting for the track to dry?
That could be a possibility, but you got to consider when it does dry, they are still going to be quite slow compared to everybody else. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of wet track, and they will be going for the karting line, the much deeper line. Look at Joe, all over the back of that Renault. He's hounding him for 4th place in this Grand Prix. You can see Reynolds is going to do his best to try and take advantage as well. And Reynolds, who was right with Jork in the early exchanges of this Grand Prix, is now right with him again, but he's made a pit stop more than the Renault in this Grand Prix. Joe looking for a move into the final corner, thinks better of it into there, and he'll look maybe towards turn 1. There's a potential opportunity to make a move. Jork doesn't defend it too hard. Into turn 1 we go again then. Will Joe get him on the inside into turn 1? It will be the outside for turn 2. Thinks about it, goes for the move, can't quite get it done. How about that wide line into turn 2? Can't quite get the move done there either. There's contact between Reynolds and Joe, but they do keep it out the barriers, and now Reynolds will be trying to get past that Ferrari, I should say. That Sauber is doing a fine job, and surprises got himself another penalty.
Wow, very uncharacteristic for Veloci Surprise. It's going to be another race, it would seem, where he isn't going to pick up the victory unless he can catch Simon. There's a yellow flag in sector 1, I'm not sure why, but this battle continues to rage on, and Joe is right up behind Jock then. Is he finally going to get this move completed? He should do it with ease on the brakes, up the inside and ahead of Jock. 16 laps difference in the tyre compounds, and in the tyre life I should say, and it tells, it really does. And now it's about to tell even more for Jock as Reynolds steams up the inside into the hairpin, round the outside I should say, and on the exit he should complete the move, and surely the traction will tell, and he will ease alongside and past Jock, who, to be fair to him, is putting up a pretty strong fight there, and it doesn't look like it's going to be that easy on the brakes, but eventually he does ease through up into P5, Jock down to P6. Next up is Morso, and he is 2 seconds up the road from Joe.
Absolutely right, and the track, you're right, it is drying a lot faster than maybe even I thought. It went so wet so quickly. I was just not expecting how quickly these guys darted in for those intermediates. Will we see someone pit in the next 5 laps? I don't think so. I don't think that anyone's going to come in that late on into the Grand Prix, and if they do, wow, someone's going to have to pull off inspired calls and make sure they make up enough time in 5 laps to really hold someone in this Grand Prix. It does look significantly dry out there. The spray isn't as significant. Maybe if Verstappen, it's DRS enabled as well. Yeah. If Verstappen would have picked now, that would have been an inspired call, and I'm afraid it's not worked out in that way, but we may see someone dart into the pits and put on a set of hyper soft tyres for the final 5 laps of this Grand Prix. Did I just see a Simon penalty there with EVR Reynolds? Can you check that? I think you might have. Yes, you did.
Penalty. So Simon picks up a second time penalty, so he's still got 1 over Surprise. And by the way, the other problem is, I know you said that we might not see anyone come into the pits in the remaining laps. Oh, as Joe makes a move on Murso, and they're both coming in, side by side, coming in. Oh, wow, I've never seen that. Joe outbreaks Murso on the way into the pits to complete his move. Well, make overtaking opportunities wherever you like, and they're both coming in for a set of Hypersoft tyres. Joe onto Hypersofts. Murso will surely go onto the Hypers as well. He goes for Ultrasoft, remember, and he gets back ahead of Joe. Look at that, he's ahead of him, so he's got the jump. Joe jumped him on the way in, but now he's back in front of him. Incredible. So out comes Murso, and he's gone for the Ultrasoft. Now remember, on previous games, the harder the compound, the better grip you have. That's just something we've seen on the previous games. So that might be a clever decision from Murso to go to Ultras instead of Hypersoft, James.
How much can they rule in now, the leaders? And that's going to be the crucial thing, because those 2 leaders haven't come in, although Simon has. He's just come into the pits to make this move, and so is Surprise. So I'm completely wrong, they've both come in at the exact same time. Everyone coming in, they're all thrown into the pits to throw on a set of Ultra or Hypersoft tyres. And what a Grand Prix this is going to be in the next 4 laps, hopefully. We'll see some inspired calls, and potentially we may not see a different race winner, but we will see, hopefully, a different race winner. Simon could still win this Grand Prix, dare I say. He's doing enough to do that so far. He's leading the Grand Prix from Surprise, who's just left the pit lane. More so is third, though. And for another Grand Prix this year, we may see another podium sitter. We haven't seen more so on the podium yet this year, and those Hasses, really, he's being overshadowed by his teammate Holland. But this is a great drive from the Northern Irish driver, finding himself on the podium at the moment.
Absolutely brilliant drive from Murso. He's out-qualified him here this weekend, and now he's well and truly outraced him. When Holland couldn't deliver, Murso has, and once again Haas are going to have a man on the podium, but this time it will be the Northern Irishman, unless OMGH Joe can hunt him down and deny him that place on the podium. But I'm not sure what the penalty situation is between those 2. Do you, James?
I will take a look for you now. I don't think it's as bad as... Yeah, Morso's only got 1 penalty. I believe Joe has also just got the one penalty. Goodness me, this really is only a few tenths of a second between these two. And the titanic scrap for the final podium spot of this Canadian Grand Prix.
Yeah, wow, it's going to go right down to the wire. Remember as well, Veloci surprise, I'm sure he's got 3 penalties to his name, but unfortunately that will not, well, unfortunately for Murso and Joe, that will not be overhauled, given there's this 18-second deficit between them. It really has to, I have to say, it's probably the biggest field spread we've had all season due to the weather and other factors that's taken place. Without doubt, the biggest field spread. But Murso versus Joe looks like the tastiest battle on track as we head into the final 3 laps of this race. Can Murso get the podium, or is Joe going to deny him in this great drive? Remember, folks, you can tell us who your driver of the day is. I've got to ask you, who would you go for at the moment, James?
To be honest, I can't really rule Simon of having a really good Grand Prix. He's really taking the advantage on those tyres as well, but I might have to give it to Murso. He's had a great drive. Reynolds has also had a really, really good drive, and he could still finish on the podium here, but it would mean that Murso and Joe have to come into some titanic, well, let's put it into contact into the next couple of laps or so. So hopefully that doesn't happen for their sake. Joe is really starting to reel in though. Simon with the fastest lap of the Grand Prix on lap 33 of 35 of this Grand Prix. It's really reeling in now. Joe is really starting to reel in that Haas as they enter towards the final chicane. Good Joe to get him into the move. Onto the inside goes OMG, it's Joe. The Ferrari late on the brakes. Is the Haas going to go later? No, he doesn't, and he's lost the podium spot more so, and that could be huge in this season. Let's just see if Joe can hold him off though in towards turn 1. The Ferrari stays ahead of the Haas, who's going to lose a podium spot, on the VSR boys scrapping away once again, but Joe will come out top trumps. He is on the podium in the Ferrari. Will he, though, get away with not getting any more penalties? Because that's the crucial factor, it seems, in the rest of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, incredible. So there goes Joe up into P3. As you rightly say, VSR 3 positions in the top 4 ruled by them, so that's a really impressive job. EVR Reynolds picks up another penalty. He's P5 at the moment. I think he's got a hat full of penalties. Jork might even fancy his P5 come the end of the Grand Prix. I don't know what Jork's penalty state is. Veloci limitless. He's had a bit of a tough afternoon, hasn't he, James? It's been a bit of a nightmare for him ever since he damaged the wing as the rain began to fall. Langman, he's failed to make any real inroads on further up the field. He's P8 now behind limitless. Gosh is P9, and Melanie is going to pick up the final point in 10th at the moment. Mike Marshmallow 11th. Dralix frustrated with that disconnection is 12th. Car Powerful P13. Overkill P14. For me at the moment, I'm going to give the driver of the day to VSR Simon, I think, as we begin this final lap, and he's finally, by the looks of it, going to take home a victory that he really deserves here in ILR. 2 second places, and it has to be said, it has been coming. And I have to feel that VSR Simon, over the course of this season and over the course of the rest of this game, is going to be a force to be reckoned with, whether it's in ILR, whether it's in AOR, because this man is really starting to raise his game. And the German driver heads down the back straight towards the Wall of Champions. He negotiates it for the final time. It's been 2 successive seconds, but at long last, it's a victory for VSR Simon. He wins the Canadian Grand Prix in a wet, dry race with a fastest lap at the finish as well. Veloci's surprise snatches the fastest lap in style at the end, and second place. It's a mere consolation for him. But it looks like, James, it's going to be Joe ahead of Murso in the battle for 3rd and 4th.
Absolutely it is. And Joe's had a really good Grand Prix, really, in the context of him spinning, and he's managed to make his way back through the field. Finishes in 3rd and where he needs to be. Although, more so, he's going to finish on the podium, because apparently Joe has picked up a penalty somewhere where I haven't called it, and more so will finish on the podium, his first ever in ILR. What a tremendous drive then from the Haas, and he will finish on the podium, keeping up Haas's podium streak.
Yeah, not only that, Jork did get Reynolds then with the penalties by 6 tenths. He was about 13 seconds behind him, I think. So Jork got Reynolds, so there you go. Jork ahead of Reynolds. Limitless 7th, Lightman 8th, Melanie got 9th because of Gorsh's penalties, so that he dropped to 10th. Mike 11th, the only man yet to see the flag. He sees it now, pardon me. And yeah, that is that. What a result then for the Haas driver. What a result though for VSR Simon. A first victory in ILR for him. A third different winner this season. Is it too little too late for the championship? Perhaps it is. It's been patchy for Simon, patchy for Limitless, patchy for Joe. Veloce Surprise continuing to keep up that fine form of his with P2 this afternoon. But it's all about VSR Simon this afternoon. A great result for him. He's on the top step of the podium here in Montreal. He wins the Canadian Grand Prix in these damp conditions. And I'm sure this is going to be the first of many over the course of the season, because he's proved today, James, that he's more than a match for Veloci Surprise, isn't he?
Absolutely right. We've said it for a long time this season. There is a lot to be fought in this championship yet. There's a long way to go. For just 13 or 14 rounds left in this World Championship, and no one came close in the end to VSR Simon, who wins the Canadian Grand Prix ahead of Veloce Surprise, who finishes in a fine second place and made that one extra pit stop from pole position. VSR more so gets his first ever podium in the league in third, Joe fourth, Jork fifth, Reynolds a fine sixth. Veloce Limitless, who had wing damage, is only seventh ahead of Langman, who had a good comeback drive to finish in eighth. Melanie and Gorse round out the top 10. Mike Marshmallow is 11th ahead of the home favourite Drylux, who could only finish 12th when not finishing. And Car Powerful overkills. The former F2 man has had a poor showing. He finishes 14th. LCR Hayden 15th. Verstappen and Holland round out the the final few spots, and Holland failed to finish where his teammate has really come on leaps and bounds, winning the Canadian Grand Prix.
Yeah, well, that rounds it off. Hopefully we'll get the guys in for interview. Are anyone here yet? I don't think so. Yeah. Oh,
I'll try my hardest.
We've got Simon in, so I'm sure we'll speak to him in a few moments with James taking the interviews. And once again, folks, I must apologise for my what I would say was poor commentary today. I am absolutely full of the cold, coughing and spluttering from time to time. My voice sounds horrendous, but apologies for that. James managed to carry me along quite the thing, so thanks for that, James. You really bailed me out a few times. I was struggling. But yeah, that rounds us off for the Canadian Grand Prix. It's time to go to the interviews, but a great result there for Murso at the end, picking up that podium place to keep up that incredible streak now. 3 races in a row for Haas on the podium. But James, I see the guys are joining. They're all in here now, I think. And it's time for you to take us away with the interviews, starting with the race winner, VSR Simon.
Absolutely right. I couldn't actually get in, surprise. I don't have his game tag, unfortunately, but if either of you do, then I'd appreciate to get him an invite. But Simon, your first win of the season. It's been coming, and it's been, maybe some would say, too long in the waiting. How does that feel to finally get that win that you so rightly deserved over the course of this season?
Great. Summed up in one word. It feels just great. I mean, you said it. It felt like it was overdue. It felt like Monaco. I mean, it turned out it was really like the red lights that screwed me over, and yeah, over the course of the season, just hadn't had the luck. I just kept my head down, tried to be prepared for every single race, and I knew at some stage the win will come. I mean, I won in AOR, now in ILR as well, so I have that under my belt. Feels definitely great. The race was really, really confusing, and really I panicked quite a bit in a few moments, because towards the end my Inters completely went off and I had 78%, and I knew they could snap in every moment and just puncture, but and Jeff was just saying rain still 5 to 10 minutes, and he was saying that for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, so you couldn't quite trust him, and so I had to make my own decision. Came in for ultras and saw Surprise came in as well, and at that stage I pretty much knew that I had to win. You never know, obviously. I mean, everything can happen, but I just knew, okay, just keep it on the road. I know he has a penalty because Jeff told me that, and I know that's a bit more trustworthy. And yeah, just everything came together. I was well prepared, and congrats to Surprise and more so as well. Especially more so, I know he's been really struggling this game, and I know what he can do, really know what he can do. I mean, I was racing him in 17, he was really quick, so I'm really happy for him. He finally got his podium, he deserves as well, and Surprise is just, yeah, everyone knows about Surprise, so GG's.
Well, congratulations on that. Another thought then. I mean, it's got to be a big confidence boost into these next Grand Prix, because there must have been points of which this season where you thought, actually, this is going to take way too long to come. So you're glad that it's now, and you're not having to wait, say, a couple of races towards the end of the season. You're still like, well, where is this bloody win? Like, it must be good to finally have it now.
To be totally
having
honest,
to wait.
I never struggled with confidence or like second thoughts or maybe if and that, because that's just I mean I've learned that over years now, over 2 years, 2 games, that that's really not what you want to do, because you can really drive yourself into a big slump if you think like that, and you can really hardly get out of that. So you just really have to concentrate on every single race. Like, it's just a new challenge, and that's what I did. Like, even if I DNF the next 3 races, I will approach the fourth exactly the same way.
I love that mindset, to be honest. It's a really good mindset to have, and congratulations on the race win. We move on to P2 in Surprise, and it wasn't quite the day you were perhaps expecting, but that extra pit stop didn't help, I suppose. You must be happy to come home in P2 knowing that you did make that extra pit stop in the end.
Yeah, the race was okay from my side. It could have been worse considering the extra stop. I was happy to get pole. Pace felt decent in qualifying. Race pace also felt good on the dries. And then when the inters came along, that's when the penalties started piling up, and it just went downhill from there. To be honest, I couldn't really adapt to the wet or the inters conditions. Sometimes I was pushing too hard, and then sometimes I was being too conservative and just picking up penalties. I think I got to about 9 seconds of penalties, and yeah, it just kind of hindered me a little bit, yeah, mentally anyway. And then, so I just made the call, because I knew Simon only had maybe 1, maybe 2 penalties, and I had 3. I think I was on the brink of 4 as well, so I thought I may as well just go for the undercut onto a fresh set of inters, and hopefully Simon's tyres exploded before the end. And he mentioned, just before he had to pit for ultras, he was on 78%. So I think one more lap, and maybe they would have exploded. But it wasn't to be. I respect his call to stay out all the way up until the ultras, and yeah, I'll be back for the next one. So GG to Simon, and more so, especially more so, as Simon said. Been struggling a bit, but he's shown what he can do, and yeah, I'll be back.
Well, fair play for that. I mean, having a result like that for Simon, that must make you feel that there's going to be a lot more left in this championship, and I'm sure it's really ludicrous, but as commentators, we kind of come out with it every week. We've got to say, well, what are the potential things that could happen? Now, seeing Simon win a Grand Prix in that kind of way, that make you feel like, yes, there will be a good fight for the championship this season, and maybe something that me and Andy can get slightly more excited about over the course of this season as well.
I don't want to sound cocky or anything, but I think Simon's luck earlier in the season may have prevented him from a championship. Obviously, there's still way over half the season to go, but like coming towards the end of the season, or looking back at the season, I think maybe Simon's luck in the first few races could have been the difference. But I expect him from now. I've always thought he was going to be a front runner, but after, I think it was Bahrain or China, I think it was China, I knew that he's definitely going to be fighting for first or second every race, and he's shown that pretty much since after China, I think it was. And yeah, I personally think he's going to overtake Joe in the championship come later on in the season, and we'll have to see if he catches up to me, but it's definitely possible. But the start of the season may have hindered him a little bit.
Absolutely, there is still a long way to go, and anything can happen, of course, so we'll keep all those options played out. Well, congratulations on your second place. We'll move to maybe the man of the moment in VSR, more so, a man who we haven't seen on the ILR podium before, and it's good to see him on the podium as well, because he's a man that's probably deserved it more than most to get onto this podium, and more so you've got to be absolutely delighted with a result like that. P3 in Canada, that will surely live long in the memory, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm thrilled with that result. You know, it's a mixed conditions race as well, so it's yeah, it's very good to get a podium. I think it was Pete on track, but of course, I knew that Joe had an extra penalty, so I decided, well, not decided, but he got a great run on me in the last chicane, and I just decided to let him through. Didn't want to battle too hard, but yeah, quali was a bit average because I'm validating my first 2 runs, so I took the last lap quite cautious because just to get up the order and get the lap in, and then the race I felt pretty decent. Was just trying to keep up with the top 4 at the start, and then the rain came down. Struggled for pace on the intermediates. I think Reynolds was long gone from me as well, and at that point I was just trying to hold off Jork, to be honest, just trying to keep the gap, and then I seen several guys in front of me pitting, and tire wear was getting a bit close if it hadn't have dried up. So I'm thankful that it dried up, to be honest. But yeah, I'm thrilled with this. As Simon and Josh said, I've been struggling recently for results, so it's good to. It's good to get the podium, and yeah, congrats to Simon and Josh as well. That they were league above today, 1-2, just it was pretty dominating, so congrats to them, and yeah, I was very, very happy to be on the podium.
Absolutely, and the other thing I just want to put past you is, I mean, you have your teammates in the VSR, with VSR in the form of Simon and Joe as well, so actually, and Holland as well, of course, and that's the thing, you've got a lot of, I won't call them teammates, because they're not really, or technically they are, and technically they aren't. But what I'm trying to make here is you and Holland have made a good team together in the Haas this season. So is that something that you two maybe even expected going into this season? That you'd be that team that would be fighting for the odd podium now and again? And recently it's looked a lot better on your side in terms of the consistency of getting the podium. So is it, do you two work well as a team together to to get the results that you are getting at the moment?
Yeah, I'd say so. We both we're both good mates as well, so that helps. And we just try our best to get up the grid. We've been struggling in qualifying last few races, so it was good to be on the 3rd row today, which wasn't too bad. And yeah, just trying to fight for podiums. I think for me personally, that the win is probably to try and achieve a win would be unrealistic at this moment. But I'd say for the races going forward, I'd say fighting for podiums wouldn't be out of reach at all. And I think yeah, that's probably what we're going to be aiming for in the races to come.
Absolutely. I love the little team that you guys have there. I'll be honest, I really do like the dynamic between you two. But congratulations on your 3rd place. And Andy, have you got anything more to add?
Yeah, just listening to the interviews there, totally agree. I love the Haas team. They just seem to almost, not saying punch above their weight, but they just, they deliver a level in qualifying and just find another level from nowhere in the race, and it's brilliant to watch them come through. Obviously it didn't work out for Holland today, but great to see that Murso was able to deliver instead, to make it 3 successive podiums in the bounds for the Haas team now, so going really well there. Picking up on what was said by Surprise as well, I mean, I hate to say it as a commentator because we're meant to promote the championship, but I tend to agree with what he said. I feel that the problem is that his closest rival in the championship might be Joe, but his closest rival race after race after race is probably going to be Simon, and Simon is just too far back due to the several incidents he had at the start of the season, the bad luck that he's been sustaining. But I mean, it doesn't bother me too much because I feel race in, race out, we're going to have brilliant Grand Prix to watch, and that's thanks to that incredible pace that Simon has found ever since China. He has been on it, absolutely on it, as Josh has said, since China. Absolutely incredible. But yeah, I've got nothing else to add.
Andy, though,
I'm looking forward to it.
If you look on the flip side of that argument, Andy, quick little bit of point here. If it can happen to Simon, that's not to say it can't happen to Josh either. Just a thought. I mean, you've got to play devil's advocate, I suppose, and you know, you've got to weigh up both options. And yeah, you're absolutely right.
Absolutely. We'll wait and see how it pans out. But that is that for the Canadian Grand Prix. We head next to, I believe it's the French Grand Prix in Paul Ricard. Hopefully I'll be feeling better by then and I'll be firing on all cylinders. Thankfully I'll have 1 week to recover. We do not have a race next week due to the F1 eSports series next Friday night, the clash with that. So there will be no Grand Prix next week. Join us in 2 weeks' time for the French Grand Prix at Paul Ricard. That's all from me. That's all from James. That's all from the guys on the podium. A big well done to them. Good night.